Okay, it is just past 11 o'clock at night. I have an early morning class tomorrow. My roommates are probably trying to sleep, but the Leafs, and specifically Michael Hutchinson, had such a miserable night tonight that it forced them to make a late night trade with the LA Kings. That's right, the Leafs have gone and acquired another California team goalie. The Leafs trade Trevor Moore, a 2020 third, and a conditional 2021 third round pick to the LA Kings for Jack Campbell and Kyle Clifford, with Clifford having half of his salary retained, so he only has $800,000 towards the cap right now. Right off the bat, this is a fantastic trade for the Leafs, I think. They give up Trevor Moore, who is a player off their current roster, but is a left winger, which is a position where the Leafs have particular strength, and as the odd guy out once Ilya Mikheyev comes back, he really wasn't that important. Trevor Moore, I feel like, was one of those guys who had a lot of hype around him when he came up from the AHL last year. He was solid in the AHL, but I feel like he was a little overhyped for his value to the Leafs team. He just never really put up the level of points that you would expect from a player who was as highly regarded as he was with the Leafs. In 26 games this season, he had 3 goals, 2 assists for 5 points. So yes, well, he is a pretty solid NHLer. He's just nothing special on a team that has some very special players on the left side. So, well, he is an NHL player, he just isn't anything special on this team, especially given that the Leafs have a lot of very good, cheap options on the left side, and players like Andreas Johnsson and Ilya Mikheyev, who right now, those two would be our 3rd and 4th line left wingers once Mikheyev comes back. And then we also get Kyle Clifford in this trade, who in 52 games this season has 8 goals, 6 assists, 14 points, about the same production as Trevor Moore if Trevor Moore played double the games. So we basically get rid of Trevor Moore for bigger, older, more experienced Trevor Moore production level. Kyle Clifford is a very interesting piece for the Leafs because he is the type of guy you want on your team when you're playing playoff hockey. Makes the Leafs a little bit tougher, and I think to have him on a 4th line left wing role is something that would very much benefit the Leafs if they do happen to make the playoffs, which doesn't really look certain right now. But Kyle Clifford for Trevor Moore is basically an inconsequential move. Basically, you're getting a tougher guy who's on the last year of his contract and giving up a young forward who has some promise, but not as much as other guys that you have playing the same position. So for the Leafs, that's not the big of a hit. But for the big part of this trade that we needed, especially with Freddie being hurt and Michael Hutchinson consistently putting up not good performances, Jack Campbell. Now, since 2007, when we got Vesa Toskala, Jack Campbell is the 6th goalie who played for a California team that the Leafs have traded for. Toskala, Jaguar, Bernier, Stalock, Anderson, and now Campbell. I don't know why, but it seems like every single time the Leafs need a goalie, we look to California and we're like, who's the best backup goalie on a California team right now, and grab them. But Jack Campbell is a 28-year-old, former first-round pick actually in 2010, who just really became an NHL backup goalie last season. He had a couple one-game stints earlier in his career, and then 2 years ago in 2017-18, played 5 games for the Kings, had a .924 save percentage that year. Last year was when he really showed up and really made a name for himself as a pretty solid NHL goalie. In 31 games for the Kings, he had a .928 save percentage on a very bad Kings team, but this season he's taken a bit of a step back. In 20 games, he has a .900 save percentage and a 2.85 goals against average, so lower end NHL backup level, but we know he can play a lot better. And also, compared to what Michael Hutchinson's been this season, a .900 is looking really good right now. Campbell's a name that's been thrown around as a guy who could move for a while now because the Kings are in rebuild mode and they have Jonathan Quick signed up for a while. So they don't need someone who can take the reins from him, although I'm not sure if Campbell is going to transition into an NHL starter right now. I mean, he broke into the league really at 27, he's 28 now, so he is getting up there in age. This isn't really a goalie of the future type backup goalie move the Leafs have made. But the Kings get 1, potentially 2 third-round picks for Jack Campbell and Kyle Clifford. And then they also get a local boy in Trevor Moore, who's from California, so he is probably going to love it playing for a big California team. And also Trevor Moore is still pretty young. He can probably still develop into a pretty solid top 9 forward in the NHL. I don't think we've seen anything to suggest that Trevor Moore is going to be a fantastic talent, but I think he can probably be a pretty solid third liner in the NHL in a year year or two. But for the Leafs, Jack Campbell gives you probably the best backup goalie we've had since Curtis McElhinney. And I think coming in, Jack Campbell has a much higher reputation than Curtis McElhinney did. Curtis McElhinney was just in out of nowhere. He's good all of a sudden for the Leafs, and it was basically a miracle. So Jack Campbell, I think he has potential to be an absolutely fantastic backup for the Leafs, but also goalies are voodoo, and hopefully not, but he could just completely fall off right now or just not be able to go be anywhere near the heights that he set for himself last season. But I feel like the Leafs right now have got themselves a backup goalie who can be anything between an 890 and a 930 for them for the rest of the season. Regardless of how he plays, I think he's 100% going to be better than Michael Hutchinson was this year and better than Garrett Sparks was last year. I don't think we're going to see the 928 Jack Campbell we saw last season all of a sudden reappear here with the Leafs, but he should be pretty solid and good enough to hold down the fort for as long as Freddie is injured, and then provide enough relief and enough competent relief that the Leafs are able to rest Freddie down the stretch in preparation for a possible playoff run. And also, in my opinion, Jack Campbell is a competent enough goalie that if we did make the playoffs and if Freddie were for some reason to go down in the playoffs, I wouldn't be overly concerned with having Jack Campbell playing playoff hockey. I feel like I would be much more confident with having Jack Campbell in the playoffs than Michael Hutchinson or Kasimir Kaskisuo backing up the Leafs in the playoffs. So overall, I think Jack Campbell is the level of backup goalie that the Leafs have needed since we lost Curtis McElhinney a year and a half ago. Overall, I just think this is a very solid trade for the Leafs. You get Kyle Clifford, who is a two-time Stanley Cup winner. He's going to add some much-needed grit to this team, some much-needed playoff experience to this team, big game experience to this team. I think he is a very useful fourth liner to have for this team going into a potential playoff run. Jack Campbell is a very competent backup goalie. He's miles better than anything we have. And to get that, we only had to give up Trevor Moore, who is right now probably the fifth best left winger on the lineup. And then, I mean, we got Kyle Clifford, which is another just replacement for Trevor Moore on the fourth line left wing right now. So really, we don't give up anything this season in terms of forward capabilities. And then we give up one, potentially two. I'm still not sure what the condition is on the 2021 third rounder, but giving up 2 third-round picks. Yes, the Leafs had some pretty good third-round picks recently. Third rounders aren't very high potential to make the NHL, and the Leafs have stacked up a ton of late-round picks, especially in this upcoming draft. I think they have 6 picks in the last 2 rounds, so they're not short for picks, and their scouting crew is so good that they've been able to find so many gems in late rounds recently, like Engvall, like Janssen, that I'm not overly concerned with giving up a couple of earlier round picks. I mean, they're thirds, which again aren't a huge chance of making the NHL right to start with. So in conclusion, the Leafs finally get a backup goalie, and well, they technically did have to subtract from their active roster by giving up Trevor Moore. They got Kyle Clifford to replace him right away, so really you have nothing taken off your active roster, just one player swap to a more experienced guy who has played playoff hockey before, and then you get your backup goalie that you want. So really, all it cost you was 2 third rounders. And again, third rounders, not a huge chance of making the NHL. You probably would have had to give up a lot more to get Georgiev. So to get Jack Campbell, who is shown to have had a better season in the NHL than Georgiev has, is a huge win. So yeah, that is it for this video. Let me know in the comments what you think of this trade. If you like this video, hit like. If you want to see more of my stuff, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Link is down below in the description, and I will see you next time.